Welcome to WFPC Podcasting, your local source for the heart and history of Pike County, Indiana. And now, here's your host, Randy Harris.
Let's move on to our third topic. Do we have a good sheriff's department? We've kind of answered that a little bit. How do you as sheriff make the department better? What's our biggest need?
I am going to focus on trying to work very closely with some of the outside agencies. One of the biggest things that I've noticed is, and one of the main complaints I have is like when you talk to some EMS guys and you talk to some fire guys and you talk to state troopers and you talk to, some city officers, like they want to work really closely together. That's the big complaint that I've been fielding a lot of, is that they feel like that there's a divide there, and I want to bring that back. We all do the same job, right? Whether you wear brown or you wear blue or you wear black or whatever color uniform, we do the same job. So we should work together. If I had a call that was like a sketchy call in Spurgeon or Stendal, guess who came with me? It was Kyle Mills.
Because you had nobody else.
You had nobody else. It was just you. Now, thankfully, and JK has been super aggressive about getting additional officers and more manpower. So we have double coverage now, at all times, which is a good thing. This day and age, you have to. This county's too big to not have at least 2 officers working at any given time. Another thing that I really want to dive into is the fiscal conservancy part of my views. We spent well into 6 figures last year in overtime for our county budget. And I some of that is because we do have to have 2 officers on at all times now. But I want to look really deep into the scheduling and the budget that we have, to see because I pay taxes here in this county too. And I'll be honest with you, I don't want my taxes to go up for myself, let alone taxes go up for other people. So I want to dive into the budget to see if there's anywhere that I can help with that, and find grants and things like that to alleviate some of the budget constraints.
A former council member used to tell me it's not the high cost of living, it's the cost of living high. And that plays in with what our conservative values are. It's different. So I moved here shortly after you were born. You were still in diapers. You were probably in diapers when I was running for mayor the first time. But at that time, we had, I think, 3 people covering the whole county, not excluding Winslow, excluding Petersburg. You had the sheriff, you had the chief deputy, and you had a road patrolman or road deputy. And I think we're at 14 now. Is that going to quadruple in the next 37 years? If it does, we're up to 50-something officers. It's a police state.
There's no way that our
we've still got 13,000 people, or a little less.
There's no way that Pike County can sustain that growth without getting commerce coming in, without populace coming in, without all those things coming in.
So, staying on the same subject, we do have budget limits, and we've got a couple of things that are going to be changing. You're going to have to take that holster off, and you're going to have to sharpen your pencil and figure out where we're cutting, because Senate Bill 1, that's going to affect your departments, not only in property tax, but also public safety income tax. And that not only affects the visible sheriff's department that we're talking about right now, it affects the jail, what's locked up, what's behind the doors, the administrative. You can't predict the future, but there are so many unknowns. It's a big job coming up.
Mm-hmm. There's sheriff's offices across the state of Indiana are squirming over the Senate bill.
And I don't know how it's going to affect anyone worse than it does Pike County.
Yeah, with the uncertainty of IP&L and that tax revenue and those types of things, like there could be a significant drop in tax revenue, resources, income. That's where I say you have to be proactive in that and go after grants, go after anything and everything you can to get revenue coming in, because you don't want to pass that on. You don't want to pass it on to the citizens of Pike County, because
we can't afford it anymore.
The cost of everything is already high. Like, trust me, I got 3 kids. Like, they'll eat you out of house and home, right? But the cost of everything is high, and you can't pass that on. Like, it's just not sustainable.
I say this occasionally, but even on this podcast, but we've got 336 square miles in Pike County. I think Josh Bird maintains 551 miles of county road, plus we've got state roads. We've got the interstate that now comes through Pike County. You're covering from Union to Stendal to Otwell to Spurgeon, all the parts in between, and your population's in Patoka and Washington. Whew. How do you do all that and maintain a livable budget?
Work. You got to work your tail off to try to get the grants, try to get the funding coming in. They've done good as far as housing the Vanderburgh County inmates to get additional revenue there. At one point in time, we were able to house state overflow. Now they kind of cracked down on some of that. That was starting to come whenever I was leaving the Davies County Jail and first came here. Was that there's like a lot of different programs that you have to have in place to be able to house the state inmates, and we didn't unfortunately have some of those at the time. So then then we picked up the Vanderburgh County inmates, and that helps alleviate some of that. But like we said before, and like one of my big things, like our jail was built a long time ago, and thankfully, like JK was really, really good as far as modernizing the camera system and doing that. But there's a lot of infrastructure there that needs updated and upgraded, and
we're going to get into that in just a minute. But society keeps changing, technology keeps changing, policing is changing. Not long ago, your drug dog was the big advancement. Mm-hmm. Today we're into drones. We're coming into AI. We're flock cameras are on the scene. Maybe not here, but what is the line between? And we mentioned this before. Keeping the line, keeping Pike County safe, and becoming a police state.
So that is where one of my big things that I want as far as this campaign, if elected, I want to have town hall style events where I can meet the citizens and talk to them one-on-one to find out what their direct opinion is. I know what my opinion is on certain things, like the flock cameras. They have their place. They truly do. Like, there's a lot of crimes that are solved by those. But also I know that Pike County is a very unique place. We're not Indianapolis, we're not in Washington, and that's 15 miles, up the road. So certain things that work there might not necessarily work here. That's where, like I said, I want to be a sheriff of the people. I want to listen to what they want and see. I still have my own ideas, and there's going to be things that'll come up that this is what you guys probably want, but as the sheriff, I think that this is probably better as a whole. That stuff is going to come up.
This program is sponsored in part by Megan's Mums and More at 2606 West County Road 350 North Petersburg, just off of State Road 57 on Cart Road. Megan and Cullen Cook started the operation in 2024 by raising mums and pumpkins in the fall, but it has grown. They now offer a retail greenhouse where you can find bedding plants, flower hanging baskets, and vegetable plants in the spring. On top of that, sweet corn in July. Megan's Mums and More is open Saturday from 10 a.m. until 4 p.m., Sunday 11 to 4, and Monday and Wednesday evening from 5 until 8.
This is Kyle Hathaway with Hathaway Excavating and Rock Yard. We have the equipment and crew to take care of your earth moving needs, septic installs, and digging out what you need dug out. We also deliver rock, and we maintain and pump septics. We're just a couple miles away. Call Hathaway Excavating at 812-582-2646.
You know, when I first ran for mayor, not to send you down a rabbit hole, but I used to carry my reporter's notepad with me from WFPC, and when I'd meet somebody, I'd write down Buck Seger, and I admitted I didn't have all the ideas. I'd say, Buck, what do we need to do for this community? And they'd tell me. I'd write it down, walk home at night, type up my comments. In the morning before I went to do the newscast, I'd read that entire list and what you told me, so I'd remember when I saw you in the grocery store, I could say, Buck, I remember what you told me, and we'd discuss it. You know, the sheriff's department and all those deputies, they're visible. What and you mentioned that Sheriff McKinney has made some improvements in that jail. It's built in 1993. To me, that's pretty new. To you, are we good? I hear grumblings. We get a lot of maintenance bills. Don't know if we can afford a Gibson County jail at $30.34 million.
No. The cost to build a brand new jail right now is
over $30 million.
Oh, it's outrageous. Yeah. There's things that we can do to modernize, like our facility, the door systems. The cameras have been updated, which is amazing. Like I said, he did a great job with that. I don't think, like what you said, I don't think the ability to build a new one is here. Like, we're gonna have to make do with what we have, and fix things as they break, and modernize when we can afford it.
And maybe even be proactive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's how we get the most out of that facility. The people in the jail, is that where they need to be?
So this is a subject that really, like, it's kind of dear to me, and as far as like helping people not be in the facility. So we have a couple things that are going against us as a society on like why jails have overcrowding, why they have what they have. The recidivism of inmates coming back is just incredibly high. I have firsthand experience with a close family member that was battling narcotics addiction. He actually, he had gotten arrested for dealing, and I watched the in and out of jail for a brief period, and then he ended up getting through a faith-based rehab program, and he got clean and whatever. And like, I want to be able to fix the individual. I want to give them the tools that they need to be able to succeed outside of here. And they've started, like, the RISE program is in the jail, that's amazing. It's a similar concept to what my family member went through, and they're doing great things with that. Like, nothing but positive to say about the way that program is. I'm a big faith-based guy, and
faith being Christ.
Yes, sir. Yeah. But also, like, you have to change the psychology of how people think. Like if they're in there, you have to change the psychology of how and why they think the way they think to give them the tools to be able to succeed when they're not in there. And so that's something else like that some other jails are going to, is bringing in like psychologists and things like that to try to curb some of that behavior.
I've got that written down in another section, but we might as well just hit it now. We have a huge problem in society with mental illness,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what fills your jails up.
So we had a law enforcement act, like a police action shooting a couple years ago, and like it's settled out with whatever now, but we'd been called to that, like this particular house, several times in like a 2-week span leading up to this, and the individual was sent to the hospital multiple times for psychological evaluations, and there's like, it was frustrating because he'd almost beat us home. Like we'd drop him off there and he'd almost beat us back to Pike County. And then unfortunately it ended up, with a tragic result. But like that's a failure of the healthcare, like that's a failure of the mental health care system. Like that is 100% a failure of that system. And that's why jail, like you said, that's why jails are full now, because they closed down the state hospitals. People weren't dealing with those things properly. And then that's just the Band-Aid of, take them to jail, take them to jail. And that's not good either. Like we need to treat the symptoms. Otherwise we're just putting lipstick on a pig, right? And sending it back out there. Like you're not fixing anything.
Is that fixable?
Not at the local level. Like that's where honestly having the power of sheriff and lobbying with other sheriffs across the state, using the Sheriff's Association, using state police, using all these organizations to lobby together to lawmakers.
That's where you communicate your need.
That's where it's going to have to happen. You're not going to change that in Pike County. That has to change up in Indianapolis.
The jail, as with the sheriff's department, you've got a budget. Got to live within that budget. Do you balance your Little League checkbook?
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, like I've been part of, the Little League. I've been part of youth football. I've been part of the routine. All these, we have budgets, right? I have a budget at home, right? So like you're constantly having to, this would be really nice to have. Like I would love to build a barn at the Little League for like inclement weather and stuff, but we're just not there. The funds aren't there. So there's grants we're going after. There's things like that to try to get that. But also like sometimes you got to do without certain things and you just got to figure it out.
Juveniles. Where are we right now with the juveniles?
So
I mentioned that I'll call the sheriff and he won't answer, and then he'll call me back. He was transported in juvenile.
Mm-hmm.
Northern Indiana. Seems very inefficient.
So they originally had a facility over in Vincennes that shut down. It's my understanding there was a business that took that over that was working on trying to get that back open. I don't know the timeline for that. My opinion as far as the sheriff's transporting juveniles all the way up, I understand why he was doing that, to save county taxpayer dollars, to save overtime. I fully understand. My opinion on that is, as the chief law enforcement officer in the county, I probably should be here just in case something happens. So I would try to use a different resource for that if I'm in that seat. But I understand why he did what he did, you'll never hear me criticize JK. I won't do it. He's been phenomenal. Great guy. You're the great guy.
Tell us about your staff at the jail. Have you got enough? Do you need more? Too many? Not enough?
So they, I guess if you look at like the state reports or whatever, we're always understaffed as far as number of jailers. It's a position where turnover rate is high and it's tough to get training properly and all those things. We could use more. yeah, we could. But again, it comes down to the budget. You have to figure out what you can afford, what you can't afford. Ideally, I would like to, if you remember me earlier talking about 6 figures of overtime budget, like if I could figure out a way to finagle some of that money down to, wherever, because honestly, it's if I can get, when I was at Davies County, we had a jailer that was a reserve officer for the sheriff's office. So he was a deputy. He would go work the road some with other deputies, but he was jailer pay. Well, that particular individual, we would have those transports. Like he would be working at the jail that day. He would do the transport. So he was as efficiently trained as a deputy, but we were paying at jailer rate is what they were doing over there. So it's a way to save money some there. And I've thought through those things, but again, until you're in the seat, I can't, this entire campaign, I won't make promises because until I'm sitting in the seat, I can't tell you.
And these questions, much hypothetical. I'm going to skip this one because we ran out of time. I think we can do enough on this part 6, which is the close. You're both pretty young compared to me. Are you taking on too much?
No, I don't think so. I mean, something I've learned in being out and about in the community is if not me, then who, right? So when the scoreboards that I'm putting up right now, well, if I don't do it, who else is going to do it? The same thing with the sheriff's office. I've put in a lot. I've got, well, since 2007, I've been in and around law enforcement. So, darn near 20 years. I've been in and around law enforcement.
This is your 20th year.
I've got a pretty significant base built up in my head as far as knowledge of the jobs around me. I'm ready.
How do you handle the pressure of politics? And politics, you're dealing with the council, you're dealing with the commissioners, you're dealing with other items.
You have to have an open line of communication with these people. I get it that the sheriff's office, as the sheriff, my job is to run not only the sheriff's office, the jail, and the security of the county. That's my focus. I understand that the council's job is to run a budget for the citizens of Pike County. I can't take it personal if the council thinks that this isn't probably the best thing for the citizens of Pike County. Do I have an idea of why I think it may benefit my sheriff's office? Yeah, I would. But also, at the end of the day, some things we can't afford to have them. It's not like we're living in, Caldwell, Indiana, where we've got unlimited funds. It's just not like that here. That's where the grants and the things like that. We have to be aggressive with federal funding grants and things like that to try to keep up.
I was told many years ago that a good politician knows 2 weeks out if he's won the race or not. We're a little less than a month. Do you have a prediction?
I'm not gonna predict anything. I focused on me, Randy, the whole time, and I'm confident in myself and my ability to lead, and I'll just leave it at that.
My next question, you've already kind of hit on, but what's important to you?
I am a faith, family, community guy first. Faith first, then my family, then my community. I hesitate to even bring this up because I've had people say, well, you should let people know, you should tell them that you're Christian, you should do but like for pulling votes or whatever, but
You want Jesus to use you. You don't want to use Jesus.
correct. And like, that's my relationship between me and God. And like, no one else needs to be involved in my relationship with him. I'll be honest with you though. I've probably talked to God more in the last 3 months than I have my entire life combined. But that's the cornerstone for my decision making. So like, if you want to know when chaos is happening and a decision has to be made and it's not going to be a good decision, or it can affect a lot of things, the basis of my decision is going to be formulated on my experience over the last 20 years and where I stand in my faith. Like, I'm going to do what I think is the right thing no matter what. And I won't change that, even if it looks like the wrong thing in other people's eyes.
2 more questions.
Okay.
Or should we hire you?
I'm ready. I think I'm ready to take over. I've put in a lot of time and energy in as far as my law enforcement career, learning. I've been supervisor. I've had a K-9. I've been at Washington PD. I've been at Davies County. I've been at the school. I've played a lot. I've been on SWAT team. I've been on a lot of different roles to have a pretty good understanding of how things should function.
You've been observing for a long time.
I have.
Last question. Tell us what you need to tell us that I did not cover. It's your closing statement, closing argument.
My closing argument, huh? So, throughout the campaign, like I said, I've ran on the fact that I'm Buck Seger. This is who I am. I have been involved in the community. I've been in law enforcement for years. Every position that I've ever been in, I've excelled at. I've built up the knowledge in my eyes to be able to take over the primary role. And I think that the citizens of Pike County will see that. I think the citizens of Pike County have seen my body of work for the last 20 years on why I deserve to have that position and why I'm prepared to take over that position. And I'll never talk about anybody else. I'll never do whatever. That's why I feel like I am ready. And if people don't see that, then I guess it probably wasn't meant to be, but I feel like I'm ready, and I feel like the general public sees that as well. And you can ask me. People can reach out and ask me, like, what are you going to do in this situation? What are you doing? But like I said earlier, I'm not making promises on what I'm going to do, because I can't judge a seat I've never sat in. But I'm ready to take over.
This program is sponsored in part by Dr. Clint Schultz with Schultz Eye Care in Petersburg. Schultz Eye Care offers comprehensive dilated eye exams, contact exams, a huge selection of name brand frames for glasses and sunglasses, and if you buy a pair, get a second pair at 50% off and a year's supply of contacts at 25% off. Schultz Eye Care is an independent office, and they are open through the week except Tuesday afternoon. Their phone number is 812-354-9400. WFPC is sponsored in part by the Dustin Schnare Agency for Indiana Farm Bureau Insurance. Dustin and his staff, including Tyler Dillon, are right here in Pike County. It's face-to-face, and they guide you through the process of the insurance. Whether it's home, auto, farm, commercial, or life, the Dustin Schnare Agency is here to help. Call the Dustin Schnare Agency at 812-766-1117 or stop in the new office at State Road 61 at Petersburg. This program is sponsored in part by the Log Ends Farm, Bed, and Breakfast just 3 miles west of Petersburg off of State Road 56. It's peaceful, quiet, and you're surrounded by nature in a traditional farm environment. It's nestled in the countryside of a southern Indiana working farm growing grain, hay, and livestock. It incorporates 2 vintage log cabins. Call the Log Ends Farm Bed and Breakfast at 812-354-9400. 2192. Let's move on to a new segment, a new topic, the Sheriff's Department. You've already stated this. You think we've got a really good Sheriff's Department.
We do.
As sheriff, how do you make that department even better? What's our biggest need?
Yeah, so we have a very young department, and I've been super fortunate. There's not anybody at the sheriff's office that I've not been involved in the hiring process for, including the sheriff. I was questioned, or my opinion was asked of when he was hired. So I'm the longest serving deputy on the sheriff's office at this time. And so I've been involved with everybody, which is good because I kind of have a background on everybody's positions. The only thing that, there's always things we can do better. But to make our sheriff's office better, I've put out a list of things that I want to do. And the main point that I keep driving home is that you build a culture that supports hard-working deputies. Nobody wants to work somewhere where someone is not pulling their weight per se, or working as hard as everybody else. And that's how you keep really good people, is by making sure that you set a culture from the very beginning that says that this is going to be a working sheriff's office, and that we want to protect the community the best we can, and that, sub-average or subpar work ethic is not going to work. That you're going to have to be a hardworking member of this department.
So I'm jumping around here a little bit because
it.
you've touched on this, and I'm going to give you a crazy example here in a minute. But what do you look for when you're hiring a deputy candidate? What are the qualities? What are the personality traits? Who are you hoping to find? You're going to roll your eyes when I say this, and the audience is going to think, Randy, did you really say that? I used to live under the premise there are two kinds of people that want to go into law enforcement. You've got the kid that wants to help the little old lady across the street. You've got the guy that's got a bit of a chip on his shoulder that's, I don't know how you say it, but borderline hoodlum that wants a badge and a gun. How do you distinguish? Yeah, I used to ask some of your predecessors who sat through interviews with me. I might throw something out, and it's not so relevant today, but I'd say, are you more like Barney or are you more like Andy?
Yeah, so I like the question. And I can tell you that professional law enforcement today has to be able to meet both of those points. So you actually have to try to find a balance. And what I've learned from all of my experience, as far as all of the hiring that I've done throughout these years and all the questions I've been asked, is that you can find a person on both ends of those scales. And they can be kind of extreme on both ends of the scales, but they just have to be that person that's willing to adjust, willing to learn the other side as well. Some of our guys come from very rough, I guess you would say, backgrounds. They grew up poor or involved in situations.
Some of those guys make pretty good officers.
And they make incredible police officers. And they can talk to people that because 90% of the time we're dealing with people who are criminals and are doing things but they can talk to them. They have compassion for those situations because they were there. And so as long as that person is someone that is going to look out for that same scenario that you threw out of the old lady walking across the road, that's going to help them. That's where the FTO program comes in and setting a standard for all your deputies to be both of those things. And it has to be driven home that way. And then anytime that there's a slip on that you bring it up with them. That, hey, this is something that we want. This is what our sheriff's office wants to look like. I can tell you that when I started, the guys that were considered cool cops back in the day, or the guys that were, a little bit rougher, and we've seen it all across the U.S. And now it's not like that. What we want to drive home, what we want the standard to be, is that professional cop who, because he's being body recorded, he's being recorded on camera, so we're going to be able to go back and look at it, which is great. I think it helps hold everybody to a higher standard. But we want that cop that professionally talks his way through a situation, even though a lot of times they're trying to be baited into these arguments or whatever by people. We don't need that. We don't need to go down that road. You're a professional police officer. It's more than a job.
really, I'm staying on the same subject, but coming at it from a different angle, the angle I deal with now. And you're going, as sheriff, you've got 2 departments. We haven't even talked about the jail yet.
Yeah.
But you've got 2 big departments, and it takes a business mind. You have to take your holster off and sharpen your pencil and figure out, going back to what you were talking about, the council, the commissioners, you're going to have to sharpen that pencil. We've only got 13,000 people here. And wow, the numbers are growing. We can only afford so much. We've got a couple more changes coming up. Senate Bill 1. That's going to affect not only property tax, but it's also the public safety income tax. We're going to have to figure out how to make this all work. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so to that point, I would say that this sheriff's election, depending on what growth we see, may be one of the most pinnacle sheriff's elections that this county's ever seen. Because tomorrow we could hear an announcement that some plant is going to build at our intersection, and we're going to be increased by population overnight by a lot. And then what do you do to try to help provide services, but stay within the same financial means that you're in? Because as we know, we don't actually see the impacts of those things for some time. So having that professional standard set so that you know what everybody's doing can help things grow. Because when I started on the sheriff's office, there was only 9 of us when I came on. We're at 14 now. And I can tell you that it is totally different of a department from 9 to 14 as far as how you manage people. Because when there was only 9 of us, it was super easy for just the sheriff to keep track of everybody per se, and most things would come directly to him through that. But as we grow, it's going to be very important that you have a structure in place to allow some other people to help you keep checks and balances on everything that's going on.
So when you were born, the year you were born is the year that I moved here. And at that time, somebody might fact check me and say, Randy, your memory's a little fuzzy. But we had the sheriff, Roger Brewster, and Roger was laid up for a while. I think we had Paul Oxendine and Bill Walker. We had 3.
Yeah.
And we've more than quadrupled in 37 more years. 28, are we going to have 56?
Yeah, I mean, that would all depend on what happens, I think.
Do we become a police state?
I think that the scary part that we had for too long, that went far too long, was that we had deputies working by themselves in this county that's huge. For having one person to try to cover all of this rural area. 336
square miles. We are bigger. We have a bigger footprint than New York City. We've got 551 miles of county roads, plus the interstate, plus state highways. You go from Clay Township down to Lockhart, up to Jefferson.
Yeah, and I've been here through the interstate change.
Stendal,
the interstate change
Spurgeon.
made things so much different from the time that I worked where we didn't have an interstate till now. That keeps us way busier than what it was before. I mean, that's what I talk about when you see something that if something gets built, we're going to be busier. I mean, there's no way around that, right? And so you have to have those people who are ready to handle that. But what I was getting at is having one person work at a time is crazy.
Why?
We're far beyond those days because people don't treat police like they did 30 years ago. It's just not the same. And the drug game is so much difference between when I started 16 years ago than it is now. When I started originally, meth manufacturing was huge, and we were one of the hottest spots for meth manufacturing in the state. We had some of the highest amount of meth labs in the county, in the entire state. During that time, I ended up being one of the biggest users of a product called Inplex, that tracks pseudoephedrine logs. So then which I didn't even know at the time. The sheriff went to a meeting and then come back. He's like, hey, just so you know, out of the whole entire state, you're one of the highest users of this program, because we were trying to suppress the meth labs. The interesting thing that's changed a bunch is then when meth labs were big, you would see 3 grams, 4 grams would be a lot of methamphetamine. And we almost never seen guns. Someone would have their grandpa's shotgun or whatever that was left over that they had inherited. But as far as like someone carrying a gun on them or in their car, it was very rare. Almost, I wouldn't say never, but almost never that we ran into that. Now, you see people with an ounce is not a lot for them to have. I mean, and we're talking substantially more methamphetamine. And everyone has a gun. All of these guys are carrying guns now. So that state has changed a ton. The way people view law enforcement or respect law enforcement has changed a ton. So to think that you're going to have someone cover this entire area by themselves is just, it's not fathomable to me.
So you're discussing it. Society changes. Technology changes. You were telling us it wasn't long ago the big advance were your drug dogs. Now we're into drones. We've got AI. We're on the horizon of flock cameras. Where's that line of keeping Pike County safe and becoming a police state?
Yeah, so that goes back to the same line that me and you, and I posed it.
We've had a very similar discussion.
I posed this because you brought it once before. Is how do you? Because I'm from Anderson, Indiana, right?
Oh my!
And I don't want to live in Anderson, Indiana.
Right.
I moved to Pike County and want to live here because of what Pike County is. I don't have interest in living in that kind of area. So you do have to try to balance, though. How do you handle things here and not make it? But you need growth to continue to move.
You fall behind.
Or you fall behind. And just like with for example, our law enforcement pay, the sheriff and the council and everybody worked together to get us up to rate. But the amount of increase that took on the taxpayer is a lot.
Wow.
But what do you do? I mean, you're in a position where it's hard to not, because we're not keeping, at that time we have turnover, we have people leaving to go to better paying jobs. And law enforcement's not what it was before as far as that goes either. Like, I could go anywhere tomorrow and make more money than I make here. And it's not, when I first started, when I first applied for the city, I want to say there was 15 or 20 applicants at the physical fitness test. We're lucky to get 5 now. And and it's not just us, all these other agencies are the same way. I mean, there's just not as many people wanting to do this job anymore as there was before. And so you could go anywhere in the state for the most part with the law enforcement academy and get hired on, making great money. And everybody's offering, great lateral programs where they want to, reflect on your years of service and give you your vacation time and everything. And so without making that change, though, to pay them better, we would have started losing people even worse.
Part of the reason we grew to the number 14 that you told me earlier, we were having so much overtime. Yeah. And you said, we've got to get control on, we need help. Mm-hmm. However, since that help has been added, the overtime continues to grow.
Yeah, so I was actually part of this original, I'm the one that put it together originally,
right,
as far as that goes. And I recall when I made that argument or pitch to the council of, hey, we need more people. Overtime is one of the big factors of that. And actually 16 is closer to the number that we actually need. We could use 2 more positions. And our people will tell you, we just had a recent deputies meeting prior to...
You get 16, you're going to have even more overtime. You're going to have more cases.
I think you could actually see an actual improvement on overtime with that one when you get to that point, and I can explain that to you. Because where we needed to get was, with the bump up, we needed to get to where we had 2 people on every shift, right? And the other problems that we were addressing was we knew that we needed a detective because we had cases that were being worked.
Prosecutor push for that.
It was a need for sure. And it's been great. We've gotten some very, very good convictions. When you have a local person who works for you, who's focused on your cases, you're going to get better results. If you're relying on an outside agency that's making decisions from a different place, a different county altogether is where their administration is at, then you're not going to get the same results. And they have way more caseload than what our local detective does. So it's invaluable to have that asset. The other thing we knew we were running into was jail transports, and paper service was running us over. So the sheriff was doing those things and trying to work and everything else at the same time. So those are two other positions that, those two positions we had to work on. Adding the other deputies' positions, the other two, allowed us to make sure that we always had double coverage. Without that, you don't have double coverage. Now you could try to adjust some things around and move people around, but there is not much place for all of our guys are working as much as they possibly can, and they'll tell you that they're probably working more than they want to. I started to say earlier is we just recently had a deputies meeting. We try hard to get them in the best we can. Our original goal is quarterly, but sometimes that doesn't happen. We stay super busy. But we just recently had a deputies meeting, and we spoke to everybody, and then we pull everybody individually and say, hey, is there, what can we be doing differently? What could we? And the biggest thing that we hear is that we're working more than what we want to work. And some of that is today's law enforcement, and some of that is just that we're still behind and guys are having to work more overtime than what they want to. I mean, we have an option for guys to make double time to do some of the enforcement that we got through a grant. And some guys don't want to work it because they don't want to work any more than what they're already working. So that would tell you that we're still overtaxing some of them, and we'll lose people because of that, because they just get tired of it. Law enforcement's renowned for a 10-year burnout. You see it across all the time. And when I came into law enforcement, most of the guys I worked with were at that point. They were at a 10-year burnout. They didn't want to be doing the job anymore. That's super common amongst law enforcement. It's just something else we have to combat.
Recently, the real estate market has been unpredictable, but the sun is starting to shine, the weather is breaking, and at Harris Real Estate, we have clients looking for homes and properties. Let us help you sell your home or property and or find your next one. You've always heard it, and it's so true. Real estate is local. We are local. We know the business. We know the community. Harris Real Estate has listed and sold hundreds of properties right here. We know Pike County. Harris Real Estate, 812-380-1065. Spring is here, and it's time to get winter off of your vehicle. When you wash your vehicle on a regular basis, there are many advantages. You're easier to see, you preserve the life of your vehicle, help maintain its value, enhances vision, and it just looks better. And washing with a wand, you can get into those crevices underneath. You can brush with a soft bristle brush and then hose it off. Stop by Petersburg Car Wash today. 401 South 9th Street, State Road 61, Petersburg. Keep it clean. Let's look at the jail. The attention is on those deputies and that rolling stock they've got. And every time I go out, I see a deputy. But behind the closed doors, behind the locked doors, we've got the jail. What is the status of the jail right now? How is it operating? What needs to be changed? It was built in 1993. To me, that's still new. Are we good? I hear grumblings. We get maintenance bills. Where are we on the jail?
Yeah, so the jail's a unique one as well, and it is a totally different animal than the law enforcement side altogether. And it's changed as well over the last, since I started there. When I first started on the city in 2009, I almost immediately started working part-time for Todd Metters in the jail. He was the sheriff at the time, and Ron Collins was the jail commander. And so I started almost immediately during that time working part-time in the jail. And when I did that, we had close to 100 inmates at times in our jail. We're built for 70, but we were packing it full of DOC inmates because at that time, we were getting paid to hold
Generated a little revenue.
Generated revenue, that's correct. And so we went as far as to take indoor rec, and they had people in there. So that space was taken away. We had people in there. living basically and holding them for that period of time. The problem is that when jails were created, things moved faster. So when jails were originally created, and even when this jail was built, things moved faster then than they do now. So there wasn't as many court proceedings and things like that took place to get somebody through. So like when the jail was originally attached to the courthouse, they had a few holding cells, right? And those were adequate for that. People would come in, they would get right back out.
Otis would let himself out.
And we would move through people fast. And that's how a jail was designed, including our jail was designed that way. Well, where we started to run into a lot of problems is now we have people who sit in jail for 6 months to a year before
the court system.
Before everything's worked itself out and we figure out where they're going. Well, now, it's not always due to the courts. The courts can only do what they can do as well. A lot of times it's attorneys, it's motions, it's things that are getting filed to slow things down on their part, even sometimes intentionally to keep them in county jail because they don't want to go to prison. And they'll just do their time, as much time as they can.
That's what I meant by the court system.
Yeah.
Legal
yeah,
process.
So it's all legal jargon that ends up slowing the process down as well. And then the facility ends up being used more as a prison because that's where people were meant to go. Prisons are designed to hold people for time.
For longer.
Right. And then that's where, a lot of classes and stuff start taking place. But now we hold people for so long in our county jails, it's super important that we're providing them adequate classes, other things that they can do to keep them busy and personal growth inside the jail for them while they're there. Because otherwise we're wasting their time. I mean, they could be doing things to grow themselves inside of our jail. And if you don't provide programs, then you're kind of wasting your time. On the jail, though, the structures itself, we've done a ton of advancements over the last, since JK has come in, it's been a lot. The camera system, as Kent was leaving and JK was coming in, had to be done. It was crazy. Our new camera system is fabulous. We really appreciate all the hard work that went in from everybody to get that done. But we're doing painting, we're doing lighting on a regular basis. There are things that always break. Hot water heaters is, I think, is one of the bigger recent ones we've had. Our generator is original to the building, so that's something that needs to be done. But the jail goes through an inspection every year. The jail inspector from the state comes in. We've never had an issue necessarily with passing that. Lighting's always been a thing that's a question because they test our lighting, they test our airflow, everything when they come in. But for the most part, our jail stayed pretty decent. The biggest issue I see with our jail, beyond the control board that Jeremy Britton got replaced as well, was insane. But the problem we see now is our door systems are mechanical still. They're not pneumatic like most of the new door systems. And there's one company that works on our door systems out of Georgia. And so if something happens with a door that's beyond what our maintenance can handle, that company's the one that has to come fix it. And they're the only company that will touch our doors.
8-hour drive.
So you have the drive and then all the service fees and everything that comes along with it. And hopefully they can find you parts for it. But that is every jail in the door. So you're talking every door almost every one of them is like that. There's a few fob doors that are mechanical locks, but any door that's what's considered like a rolling door, that would be probably the biggest concern I see with our current jail. Size has not really been an issue right now. We're not seeing like everybody else where they're drastically overpopulated. And most places are building jails and then still overpopulated.
$30 million.
It's insane.
For a new jail?
Yeah, and then still overpopulated. Like they still have to push people out to other places.
One last subject on the jail. It's kind of the jail. It's certainly holding and security of prisoners, juveniles.
Yeah.
Your current sheriff, I'll call him for something and he won't answer. He'll call me back and he'll say, I've been on the road transporting a juvenile.
Mm-hmm.
That takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
Because until very recently, he's been driving to northern Indiana. You've got something in Evansville now. What is your status on transporting juveniles?
Evansville is almost a no-go because they're typically full. There was an option for us to have a bed available there to us. The number was pretty crazy that got thrown out to us of what that was going to cost us to retain that bed for use.
A couple $100 a day, was it?
Yeah. The end year number was pretty ridiculous. And then The problem is that the long-term stuff ends up getting paid by the state for the most part. So the state ends up holding the burden on a lot of the Department of Child Services into picking up a lot of that cost on the back end of like the long term. Like if someone gets sentenced to somewhere, a juvenile gets sentenced or sent somewhere by them, that ends up getting covered. Now that detention time between everything is pretty much on the county to take care of for the most part, including all of this running around transporting that we do. And we literally, the sheriff runs to Mishawaka often. I take the one that's kind of close back to home of me, of Muncie. And he stays with family when he goes to Mishawaka, and I stay with family when I go to Muncie and Anderson, because they're 30 minutes apart. Trying to help cut down the cost on that, cut down the overtime on that, and everything on those lines. The other one is that Johnson County, and so a lot of times that's just a back and forth. But you have one like Mishawaka, for example, where he's 4 hours north.
You drive faster than I do.
And the juvenile is going to have to be back in a day or two. It doesn't make sense to send a deputy up there,
right,
turn around and have them come back in a day and everything else. The solution, I don't know, to be honest with you. I actually talked to the sheriff about this morning, and it's one of the topics that kind of keeps being brought up to us. And I don't like saying things of a solution that I don't know I can do in a campaign. If you hear me say something, I'm confident that I can do it. And this is one of those things that if I say I'm not confident, and that would be something along the lines of using what used to be work release area, that's a female's holding area for juvenile holding, and I don't know that that's possible. It's something I want to look at, but I would never say that I'm going to do that, because I don't know. There's so many hoops to jump through there, and then the other liability that comes along with it on whether or not it ends up being feasible or not. But other than that, it's a cost, no matter what you do. You're going to pay somebody to hold them.
I'm skipping our Pike County section. You've pretty well covered most of it. Going to the last part, the close. You and your opponent, you're both pretty young compared to me. Are you taking on too much?
No. As far as this is what I've done. I've done this now for 7 years. Prior to that, I was a sergeant. This is all I've ever done is law enforcement. This is what I know. This is the way I've lived. I get my work ethic from my dad. He's always been extremely, extremely hard worker, and I'm the same way. This job is my life. The people at the sheriff's office are my family. I don't have family that lives here. They have been my family. This is what I've done my entire adult life, and this is just the next logical step to it. To move forward and use all the experience that I've gained in the role of sheriff.
It segues into this one. What's important to you? What's important to Dallas Killian? What are your priorities in life?
Oh, in life, that's a big question in life. There's lots of things that I would love to achieve in life. Always make sure that my family has what they need is always important to me. And then community safety, though, as far as my job goes here, is my number one priority. There's all kinds of things that go along with it when we start talking about the politics of things. Obviously we want the jail to try to make a little bit of money here and there when we can, those kind of things. But I will always route back to my number one thought process on everything is community safety. I'll example it back to when I'm teaching new cops. I tell them to think about how they set up their belt, even as something as simple as that is how you set your belt up. And it's the same thing as I tell them is whatever you do it for safety purposes, and you don't do it for your own comfort. Because you hear a lot of guys, well, I don't like this way. It's not comfortable. Yeah, well, you'll get used to it. And it's for the safety of everybody.
You start riding in that car like this.
The craziest thing to me, we hear deputies say, I don't like wearing a bulletproof vest because it's not comfortable. Well, yeah, it's not necessarily about you either. You're there to protect people, and that may not be the most comfortable thing for you, but it could keep you in the game long enough to be able to protect somebody else, and that's what you signed up to do. And this is the same thing for me for community safety. That is my number one priority. It's not politics. It's not anything else. It's keeping the community safe.
How do you handle the pressure of politics? We've touched on that earlier.
Yeah, I've been dealing with, as I said, as soon as I came on as sergeant, the politics pressure began. And it's not anything new to me.
So I was told many years ago, a good politician knows 2 weeks out if he's won the race or not. Do you have a prediction?
I feel very confident that I'm going to win this race. I would never be bolsterous enough to say that this is not going to be a close race. That is crazy to think. We're both hard workers. I would never go down that road to say that, but I'm confident that we'll win. I think that people understand the experience is needed to continue to run the sheriff's office.
What do you need to tell us about you as your closing statement that we haven't covered?
The dedication and sacrifice that it takes to run a sheriff's office is something that I'm already super familiar with and that I've done for years. The things that you can't teach somebody are the things that I've already learned. What happens a lot of times in this community never gets seen. To tell you that we've been on multiple hostage situations or things like that, most people will be like, oh, that doesn't happen in Pike County. And the reason they don't see it that way is because when it comes out, that case log just says that this is criminal confinement. And that's what took place there. This person was charged with criminal confinement, but what they don't realize is that call came out as a hostage situation. And we arrived on scene and we used the training experience we have. And I'm in those roles making decisions of what takes place there. And I've done that for years. I mean, the sacrifices that come with that is that I drop everything when work calls. And I've always been that way. Like I said, it's probably to a fault. My dad was just the same way, though, just in a different business. But when the phone rings, I leave whatever I'm doing and I go do that. Now, I don't want recognition for that sacrifice. That's fine. It's what I sign up to. It's what I love. But the thing that needs to be realized with that is that that's an experience. So every time that something like that happens, and every one of those calls I've been on, that's a check mark of experience. That's one more thing that I've done that I can go back to for the next call that comes up and reference of, hey, this is what we did last time. This is how it worked. And I was successful, or I've had plenty of failures too, where I've done something that I was like, man, I wish I would have done that differently. So you learn from both of those things. But if you weren't out there doing those things for years on end that I have, then you just don't have that experience and there's no way to gain it. So when you take over something like this, that has all these other things, not just this, but you have all the other pressures of everything, and then you're thrown in that to make these kind of decisions, it's super important that experience is there. Because day one, January 1, when Jason McKinney hands over the torch to whoever it is, anything can happen that day. And that person is going to be responsible for making those decisions. So that experience is going to be invaluable when we get to that.
Dallas, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on. I really do.
You're welcome. Thanks for joining us for this program of WFPC Podcasting. The program is brought to you by Hathaway Excavating and Rock Yard, Schultz Eye Care, the Log Ends Farm Bed and Breakfast, the Dustin Schnare Indiana Farm Bureau Insurance Agency, Harris Real Estate, Megan's Mums and More, and Petersburg Car Wash. Please thank our sponsors for their continued investment in Pike County. A new program appears each Friday on WFPC Podcasting, exploring the people, information, and news right here in Pike County. See you next week.
Thanks for watching WFPC Podcasting, your local source for the heart and history of Pike County, Indiana. From backroads to town centers, we bring you the voices, stories, and news that shape our community. Join us on this journey through the past, present, and future of Pike County, Indiana. Tune in next week for the next episode of WFPC Podcasting.